Thank you for joining us for Indianapolis This Week. I'm Rafael Sanchez. The election now 37 days away. The focus on the vice presidential debate between Mike Pence and Democratic candidate Tim Kaine of Virginia. Governor Pence on Friday making his first official campaign rally in Indiana since accepting the Republican nomination for vice president. Pence appearing before a couple hundred of people in Fort Wayne, joined by Lieutenant Governor Eric Holcomb and U.S. Senate candidate Todd Young. Pence plans to spend the weekend in Indiana before the debate. Our RTV6 political insider Abdul Hakim Shabazz talked with the governor about the debate.
Any more extra pressure on you, Governor, with Tuesday's upcoming debate with Governor Tim Kaine, with Donald Trump's performance started off strong. The conventional wisdom is it tapered off of it, and now there's more pressure on you to have a much stronger performance than, say, you might have had to in the vice presidential debate on Tuesday.
I thought Donald Trump had a great night last Monday night because he was himself. And I think the message that he delivered, a message of this election being about change versus the status quo, resonated with people all across the country. But, you know, for my part, we're going to spend some time going over notes and preparing and getting ready for the debate in Virginia on Tuesday night. My goal is to talk about the man, it's to talk about the message, and talk about the choice. And as I said, it's an incredibly humbling opportunity for me and my family to be involved in it. I'm just hoping and praying to meet that moment with candor and with clarity and really lay out the choice that our country faces.
Governor Pence also taking to the pages of USA Today to praise his running mate, the same publication that on Friday called on Americans not to vote for Donald Trump. The governor in his editorial wrote, "By electing Donald Trump, the American people have the opportunity to choose a bold leader. In a political world often reserved for talkers, Donald Trump is a doer. I've come to know the man who invited me to join him on the Republican ticket as thoughtful, compassionate, and steady. Above all, I know he's ready to lead the United States as our next president and commander-in-chief." Mike Pence has also spent parts of the last 2 weeks getting ready for the vice presidential debate, including closed-door debate sessions with a former Republican candidate for president. ABC's Inés de la Cuetera is on the road with Pence for us here at RTV6.
Good morning, Rafael. Well, this will be the first and only VP debate of the cycle. The campaign hasn't told us a whole lot about how Pence is preparing, but we do know that they had Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker stand in for Tim Kaine during mock debates. We were actually in Wisconsin on Tuesday and Wednesday, and we know that Pence met with Walker then. We're also not sure just how involved the Trump side is, whether, they've sent advisors to sit in on the mock debates, for instance. But what I can tell you is that we were in New York 3 times this week for some closed press events. Pence was asked about his debate prep on CNN.
For my part, my focus the last 4 years has been and continues to be on leading the state of Indiana. So I've been brushing up on all those Washington issues I used to deal with full time when I was in Congress. But I'm looking forward to a good debate next week.
And Rafael, Pence's spokesman tells us that Pence will be taking it easy this weekend, hiking and biking, and pretty much taking it easy with his family before the big day. Rafael?
Joining us now is Kevin Warren. He's a Hillary Clinton supporter, also the man behind the campaign Pence Must Go. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So I'm looking ahead to Tuesday, the big debate versus Governor Pence and Senator Tim Kaine. Many say this will be a debate among equals, that both of these men should be the ones leading their respective parties. What do you say?
Well, I have a couple of thoughts on this issue. One, I think it's going to be very obvious that they look at how they support the policy in reference to economics and terrorism and how they support their candidate. But what I would love to see is how not only Mike Pence has been divisive in Indiana, but how he shares the opinions of Donald Trump. And where Tim Kaine is a little more even-keeled. As we know, anyone living in Indiana, we know what he's done to Indiana. So that's what I would like to see. I would like to see more civil liberty type questions.
If you look at the numbers, the governor will be able to make at least a case on the economy based on Indiana's economic record, whether you like it or not, right? What will Tim Kaine have to then point out on the Pence record?
Well, I think we can tear the economy part apart. Every state has grown, and we've grown very slow. I really think Tim Kaine is going to have to go after his social issues and show how he's divided not only our state, but in reference to women's health, LGBT issues, being anti-public education and being anti-unions. And I think those are things he can go after.
But here the Rust Belt, as you know, what it appears that Mr. Trump did well, at least in the first few minutes of his first debate, when he talked about free trade, when he talked about the economy, and that's where Mrs. Clinton did not do so well because of her support initially, for her support for NAFTA, and now she's against the TPP. So on the economy, where the voters, as you know, it's all about the jobs, right?
Sure.
How will that fight look on Tuesday?
Well, again, I would think Tim Kaine would have to go on his anti-union stance, and I think because we have a lot of union supporters, especially in the Pence Must Go pack, they've come out in many numbers around the state.
On the issue of the Indiana vote, Indiana is a red, sometimes can be a purple state, but the early numbers do not show well for Mrs. Clinton. Can she recover at all, or is Indiana going to be one of these flyby states, a flyover state, I should say?
Well, I hope we're not a flyby state. You know, Barack won the state in 2008. We lost it again in 12. We're typically a red state, but everything I'm hearing, it's getting closer and closer. And I think if Donald Trump keeps sticking foot in mouth, we'll even have a better opportunity to do so. But we are a red state, so we're not in denial about that. But we want to win the governorship, and then and hopefully. And Senator Bayh, as well as, or Evan Bayh, and then also maybe pull in Hillary Clinton.
So how are you trying to energize on the troops, though? Because this really comes down to a ground game. Is there a ground game in Indiana to, as you just mentioned, the different kinds of the senator's race, the governor's race? Do you have the ground game to get the voters out, not only for early voting, but then also on Election Day?
Well, I know the Hillary office is doing a wonderful job. And I personally am not involved with that. We're an anti-PAC, so I cannot be part of that and contribute to that PAC. Having said that, I get updates and they tell us about all their different phone banking and all the different things they're doing about getting the different groups out. And so I know it's happening. I'm just not personally a part of that.
Kevin Warren, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Please come back anytime on this program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. You can see that vice presidential debate live on RTV6 Tuesday at 9 p.m. Our political insiders will also be on Facebook Live before and after the debate with immediate reaction to what is said. And I'm heading to Virginia as well for full coverage of everything leading up to the debate at Longwood University. I'll be on site starting tonight on RTV6 News at 11. To Indianapolis this week, this is Democracy Couch, and here are political insiders, Democrat Adam Kirsch, Republican strategist Marcus Barlow. We are a week away from the second presidential debate. We're just 2 days away from the VP debates. What do you make of it all? Is there any value in these debates?
Well, I think there's clearly value in these debates. We saw in the first presidential debate that Donald Trump demonstrated once and for all, again, that he just doesn't have the temperament to be president. He went on the attack repeatedly, and Hillary Clinton showed herself ready and able to govern on day one.
Well, I would not to disagree with you, I guess. I disagree with you all the time, right? I think what we saw was Donald Trump being Donald Trump, and that's what's got him electoral success so far. That's what got him electoral success in the Republican primary. I think that, you know, that first debate, we can talk about body language, we could talk about who went on the attack. I think they both went on the attack. I think they both got good shots into the things they wanted to get. Some of the things that were living after that debate, I think some of Hillary Clinton's answers about law enforcement have lived on, I think, as well as some of the things that she got Donald Trump on and some of the things,
so what needs to change for the second round, right? So what in the second round do you have to see that you did not see in the first round?
Well, I think for Donald Trump to have any chance, he's got to become a completely different candidate. Marcus talked about things living on. I mean, even through Friday of this week, we saw Donald Trump continuing to talk about the Miss Universe contestant he called Miss Piggy. He called Miss Housekeeping because of her Latino background. Donald Trump interrupted Hillary Clinton 25 times in 24 minutes. That's offensive to many female voters who are just tuning in now.
But Marcus, this is the gentleman who said a lot of things during the primaries and won. his party's nomination. Does he change? And the media has asked for this change, but this is the way he has comported himself. So does he change?
And as much as Adam wants to act like it was a slam dunk, I mean, the race is still tight. Hillary Clinton didn't put him away in that debate. So what I would like to see from Donald Trump in the second debate is needling her a little bit more on some of the policy things that I think she would rather not talk about. Some of the things with how Obamacare is failing. In Indiana, particularly, we saw IU Health remove themselves from Obamacare because, I mean, it's a disaster of a legislation. So I'd like to see him attack her a little bit more on some of that policy stuff.
Let's talk about the vice presidential debate. I will be in Virginia in a couple of hours. Is all the weight now on Governor Pence and Tim Kaine to either defend their party's nominees, or will this be a fight between them?
I think most vice presidential debates end up being a fight between them, but it's a proxy battle. Senator Kaine will be attacking Donald Trump. Mike Pence, confessions of a negative campaigner fame, will be going negative on Hillary Clinton. And we'll see who does that better.
Does Mike Pence have to reset the campaign for Donald Trump, or does Mike Pence just have to set his own course?
I don't think it's necessarily reset, and I think Mike Pence throughout this campaign has been his own man, has set his own course. I think what you'll see him do is some of what I was talking about, wanting to see Donald Trump do in the next debate. I think you'll see him kind of corner Tim Kaine a lot on some of the policy things that they're proposing and some of the policy things that Hillary Clinton has done in the past that might not be popular to voters now.
What will Mr. Pence have to do to get under the skin of Mr. Kaine? I mean, on what issues, or what issue will, and vice versa, what will...
Yeah, I think Tim Kaine's a disciplined politician. I don't think that you could get him emotional about things. I think that what Mike Pence could do is get Tim Kaine somewhere in that space between where he said something that disagrees with what Hillary Clinton has done or has said. And I think that he would be smart to kind of focus on those areas if he wants to get Kaine off his message.
But Adam, there are a lot of differences between Mr. Pence and Mr. Trump.
Yes, there are. One of the interesting ones is the television debate and the vice presidential debate. Donald Trump's a reality television star. Mike Pence made most of his living in the private sector as a radio host. I think they're both sort of built for this entertainment aspect, and we'll have to see how Mike Pence does.
Who wins Tuesday?
I think Mike Pence comes away the winner, just because I think that, you know, the expectations of the vice presidential debate aren't that high. I think that if Mike Pence comes out and he's disciplined, talks about policy, I think you'll see a lot of the Washington pundits or political pundits like us come away saying, oh, look at Mike Pence, he did such a good job talking about policy, whereas Donald Trump might not have done as good a job.
And Adam, let me guess, who wins Tuesday?
I actually think if we see the same thing we had in the debate where Democrats say the Democrat won, Republicans say, oh, it was basically a tie, it's a pretty clear victory for the Democrats.
I'm glad to see consistency here on the Democracy Couch. They will be back to Indianapolis this week as we turn our attention now to the race for governor. The candidates preparing for their second debate happening tomorrow night. They shared the stage Monday to talk education. But as RTV6 State House reporter Katie Hines explains, the men did not break a lot of new ground.
Last Monday's debate is being criticized for some for the format, the setup, and the venue. Also the fact that it wasn't televised. And you could argue that the candidates didn't get into specifics in this first discussion focused entirely on education. In questions, some of them submitted by students from 7 area high schools, Republican Lieutenant Governor Eric Holcomb, Democrat John Gregg, and Libertarian Rex Bell were asked about their plans for replacing the I-STEP and solving Indiana's teacher shortage. The polite discussion included few major differences between the candidates, all three agreeing a review of educators' wages is needed. On the I-STEP, Bell arguing multiple tests could be the answer, while the major party candidates say the solution is one test that provides quicker feedback while maintaining accountability.
There are different types of testing that different school corporations would adopt depending on what their student population desired.
I think we do need to have a single test that is a test that will measure fairly and accurately and quickly a student's progress.
It's got to be something where we focus on where it benefits the teacher as to how their instructions, but most importantly, it's got to give some feedback also to that child.
The second hour-long debate is set to get underway at 7 o'clock tomorrow night at UIndy. You can watch it live right here on the RTV6 app. Raphael, back to you.
Katie, thank you. Now let's bring back our insiders, Adam Kirsch and Marcus Barlow, to the Democracy Couch. Gentlemen, the value of this debate now too close to call. What has to happen for these two candidates to sort of break and possibly win on November?
I think John Gregg has to do something that will last. I think that if the structure of how this election is happening in Indiana continues on, then Eric Holcomb probably wins a very close race. John Gregg has been running forever. His people know who he is. It's not like he's going to greatly increase his name ID before the election. I think that what has put Eric Holcomb probably in a tie with John Gregg is that people don't necessarily know who he is because the campaign season has been so short for him. He's been raising a lot of money. He's gone up on TV a lot now. I see that changing, and I don't think that John Gregg is really going to have coattails statewide to ride on. And no matter what poll we see, John Gregg's support stays the same. I think he needs to do something to really increase that support.
But Marcus must be living in the Donald Trump pick-your-own-reality world. John Gregg is up 4 points in recent public polling.
But his support has
and
increased.
has released 18,000 words of policy documents where Eric Holcomb, he said people don't know who he is. They don't know what he's going to do because he's refusing to say any policy proposals. He's got about 800 words
he
of
just
policy
released
proposals.
his economic policy.
Which is entirely a continuation of Mike Pence. I mean, he's basically
record investment and job
he's
growth.
Mike Pence and repeat.
We should keep that.
Well, record job growth, wages have fallen from 33rd to 38th.
The White House just put out a report trying to brag about Indiana, how
yes,
jobs have increased.
And that report
how
said
income has
Indiana's
come up.
economy grew by about 2% last year when the nation grew by about 5.2%. Indiana's getting left behind in the national economy, and the Pence-Holcomb policies are to blame.
So when these three gentlemen, including the Libertarians, stand there, right, because you have to break through all the noise, and here we are close to Election Day, what has to be said so that the undecided, those, whomever you are out there, will say, yeah, that's the person?
I think Hoosier voters are looking for a clear, articulate policy plan. John Gregg has a 35-point jobs plan that will bring good, high-paying jobs here to Indiana, and Eric Holcomb has some bullet points, half of which start continue.
John Gregg has a big jobs plan. Congratulations for that. He also has a record of taking us into deficit. He also has a record of killing jobs in Indiana. So I think what Eric Holcomb has to do is remind people of
deficit.
The debt.
Deficit.
He talks about it in his own book. John Gregg talks about in his own book plunging Indiana into debt. So I think that all Eric Holcomb has to do is remind people. John Gregg says great things. He's been a completely different candidate every single time he's run. All Eric Holcomb has to remind people of is who John Gregg has been when he's been in office, and I think he wins the race.
So will the top issues be jobs, education, or civil rights? So what will be the issue that propels this campaign, right? Because people are now paying attention.
I think jobs.
Civil rights was an interesting one because Eric Holcomb has said he is of one mind on all issues facing Indiana with Mike Pence. He's basically said that civil rights aren't going to happen, so he's got no desire. And I would think you worked for Greg Ballard. I think you would want to see a civil rights protection passed.
I think when we talk about civil rights, I think that you talk about it in some sort of broad circumstance, but what really John Gregg is talking about is RFRA, which didn't end up being the doomsday scenario that you guys talked about, which is totally taking the punch away from that argument that you guys keep continually making and you made against Mike Pence while he was still beating John Gregg.
You get the last word.
Except you go around to business leaders around the state and they say RFRA was an embarrassment and we need to do something to stop it, like John Gregg is trying to do.
While they're still investing in the state.
They really do get along on a Sunday, really. And this